Hey guys, it's Stephanie here with another Four of a Kind video for October, and today I want to talk about 4 books that deal with vampires. So these are 4 books that are about vampires that dealt with them in new, interesting ways, and I thought brought a lot of stuff to think about. So of course, first of all, I'm going to talk with the daddy of all vampire novels. I am talking about Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now, at the point that I'm filming this, I haven't done the reread that I'm planning to do of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But this was one of my favorites in high school, and it is told in an epistolary format. So it's told in like letters and telegrams and diary entries. And in the story, basically, there is a visit to Transylvania to meet Dracula, and then Dracula himself like comes to London and starts attacking people. Dracula is important in the scope of vampire literature because it just established so many of the things we associate with vampire literature today. For example, it was the first instance of vampirism as a kind of disease that could be passed on from one person to another. Since it does follow Dracula's move from Transylvania to London, there are so many different takes on this story. There are people who say that, it covers anxieties about colonialism and a little xenophobia. There is, of course, talk that it covers a repression of Victorian era sexuality, vampirism in general being exploitative in nature. So this is just a great book. I'm really excited to do a reread of that with all those things in mind that I definitely was not thinking about the couple times that I read this through in high school. But yes, if you're going to tackle vampire literature, I would say you gotta read Daddy Dracula here. The next book I want to talk about is Let the Right One In by Ajvide Lindqvist. This is a Swedish novel, and it takes place in Sweden in the 80s, and we follow a boy named Oscar who is very, very severely bullied at school, and he meets his neighbor Ellie, who is a vampire, and they form a very close friendship. I really enjoyed the writing in this story, and this book really does cover a lot of dark themes. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of bullying in this book. There is abuse, there is pedophilia, and of course there's a few, just gruesome scenes. But I really enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed the friendship of Oscar and Ellie. Differences in the vampires in this book, which I really can't get into because I feel like that is kind of a spoiler. We know that Ellie is stuck in this 12-year-old body, and basically logistically what she has to do to survive. So this was just a story I really, really enjoyed on that level. Also, definitely go watch the Swedish movie adaptation. It is amazing and one of my favorites. I totally love it. The third book was a book I read recently. It is a novella called Some of Your Blood by Theodore Sturgeon. This was written in the 60s and was very heavily inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula, mostly because it is told in an epistolary format. There is a man who is in the military who has been called in for questioning because the censors were going through letters that soldiers were sending out, and his letter was especially disturbing. He gets called in to see a senior officer and eventually to psychiatric evaluations. And the story is basically like all the paperwork and the interviews and the sessions with his therapist, and it is really interesting. This book has little to no horror. It's just a new and interesting look at vampirism, and it is just such a really short story. I can't give too much away, but if that sounds interesting to you at all, I definitely suggest picking it up. And the last book I want to talk about is Fledgling by Octavia Butler. I have done a full review of this that I will link below. But in my review, I also state that what I loved about this story is the new twist of what people would normally think of in vampires. Much like Let the Right One In, our main character is a child vampire. Okay, and in this case, she is a black female child vampire. I really loved Octavia Butler's spin on vampirism in this novel. Unlike Dracula, it is not contagious, not like a disease you can pass on to someone else. It's very much something you're born with, and there is a whole system for feeding and taking care of people, especially since our protagonist, much like Ellie and Let the Right One In, is a child, and if you were to see her on the street, you would not think that she would be able to take care of herself. So just the system and how well thought out everything is, and the whole vampire community and all of the rules and laws that were placed in order I thought were really interesting and laid out. There was a few issues that I had with the story that if you want to know more, I will link my full review on this below. And despite the few issues that I had with the story, it was fairly enjoyable. I definitely did enjoy Octavia Butler's new take on these like less exploitative group of people. Obviously, there are so many other vampire books that I know are out there that are more popular that I haven't read. Like, I still have never read Salem's Lot, and I've never read anything by Anne Rice. I do plan to pick something up soon, but as of this moment, I haven't read any Anne Rice. So those are my 4 picks for books about vampires. Let me know if you've read any of them or if you have any other suggestions. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!